Hey OT dudes and dudettes, in this video I will go over the top 5 fieldwork mistakes to avoid in occupational therapy clinicals as a student. This will apply to you if you are level 1 and especially to you if you're level 2 for all settings including mental health, pediatrics, and adult phys dis. Before I get into these, it's important to know that your school policy or even the facility's policies is the absolute authority on what to do or what not to do. The points I will go over are just general mistakes to avoid. Whether making these mistakes will fail you, of course, will depend on many factors. Some are more serious than others. Remember to keep in mind one thing, and that is fieldwork is hard. You are applying what you know to real life in challenging situations, and you often may not know or lack the experience to know what to do. Don't be too hard on yourself if you make mistakes, don't know the answer, or feel like you're an imposter, like with imposter syndrome. We all go through this. You will get through it. Remember to breathe and basically use common sense and follow your gut. Although I was never a clinical instructor, these are some of the things I noticed while working when other students did in their fieldwork, what my colleagues have told me, and themes that I see on social media too from other students who have either failed the first time or had a lot of difficulty with it. I'm Jeff, an occupational therapist who created OTDUDE to raise awareness of occupational therapy profession and help students and new grads out. Let's get functional. Number 5 is not looking professional. Sure, you're not expected to look like you're showing up to an interview, but you should blend in with the team and not stand out. This of course depends on the uniform you're given to wear. Some nursing students, for example, wear like all white and they definitely stand out, but there are ways to avoid standing out even more than you need to. So iron your clothes or scrubs should not be super wrinkled, like crumbled up like a piece of paper in the trash can. One pro tip is to get a handheld steamer. They heat up really quick and don't require the fine motor skills and patience of using a traditional iron, and it can be pretty quick. It really just takes a few minutes to get all the wrinkles out in the morning. Tuck in your shirt. Make sure you don't have too much skin showing. Do the bend over test and the squat test in front of the mirror for your bottom. Reach down and pick things up from the ground, that kind of thing, and make sure nothing is showing. This is not usually a problem for students, but worth mentioning. Your shoes should be fairly clean and not have like a bunch of scuff marks. Tie your shoelaces, that kind of thing. Another thing I've seen students is forgetting their name badges. My tip is to leave it in your car every time you finish your shift. Don't leave it clipped on your scrubs or uniform because you're going to throw in the laundry and that's even worse. Or you forget at home. You can leave it in your car every time, say the cup holder or your car door where your driver's side is. They usually have like a little storage pocket on the side and you can leave it right there. And if you forget in your car, at least you don't have to go all the way home. Or yeah, you're probably not going to do that either because you'll be really late. I put my name badge next to my phone in my lunchbox. If you have a lunchbox or a lunch bag, you can clip your name or your name badge to that too. Even if your attire is spot on, here's my last point on looks and appearance. And that has nothing to do with your clothes. It has to do with you. And that's looking bored. Pay attention to your non-verbal expression and body position. Don't fold your arms too much. Don't try to stuff your hand in your pockets, especially in front of clients and patients. I like to either have them by my side while standing, like over here, or I fold them over in front of me and have good posture. You should be doing this anyways for ergonomics, and don't slouch, bare your face, in your hand while you're documenting, that kind of thing. I was taught in EMT school to basically not touch my face during my shift as much as possible. That's a good idea anyways because of COVID and all the germs going around these days. So number 4 is language and gossip. We all swear. I never once actually swore while I was on fieldwork and basically never used any profanity or anything like that, even during work. It's a huge professional no-no. Some CIs may be more strict about this than others, but why risk it? It's easy to lose points and get docked in this category, so don't even do it. Other language to avoid is offensive language. Try to be politically correct. I'm not saying to talk like you're a robot, but talk like you would normally, just don't swear and say offensive things or potentially offensive things. What else? Gossip. Don't do it. You are just meeting the team, and even if you know someone from before at fieldwork, do not gossip. It is not professional. Do not gossip about other coworkers ever. Sometimes we like to talk about other clients when they're not around, such as when collaborating with other colleagues, or updating each other on the progress, and that's generally okay if a therapist starts gossiping about a client. I mean, you could be part of the conversation, but don't start contributing and spreading any rumors. Definitely don't make fun of clients, talk down on them, or in general say something you wouldn't want said behind your back from a therapist if you were on the other side, right? I would be careful with what I share, my experience in terms of with classmates as well. You never know when something may slip or be said unintentionally, and it can get you in trouble. You can speak in general terms, but in the therapy world, it's quite small, and other students and teachers know where you are doing your clinicals, so it's not much that hard to figure out what's going on and where you are and who you may even be talking about. Remember to follow HIPAA, right? Number 3 is tardiness or absences. You know from reading your fieldwork policy that too many absences can result in you failing fieldwork. Sure, your school may make some exceptions for emergencies, and this depends on the school, of course. I understand students may get sick, there's COVID going around, exposures. If you're unsure about whether to not to show up, let your CI know as soon as possible and ask for their input. They may be more than willing to provide you with guidance. The last thing that they will want you to do is show up and spread germs around the office or the facility to patients or coworkers. So don't stress too much about that, and basically try to be professional in your communication and let people know ahead of time. Try to be punctual. If you're scheduled to show up at 8, show up at 7:45. Get settled in and maybe go to the bathroom, clock in, and do, basically not stress about going to work before the actual work happens. And definitely don't be like a minute or any more than that late. Some CIs really do not like tardiness. It could be their pet peeve, and that can dock a lot of points from you in your final eval. So why risk it? That's the easiest thing to prevent from happening, and being late is generally not a good professional thing, especially as a student. So come in early, maybe study in your car, do some meditation, eat some breakfast, go for a walk around the block, use the bathroom, or even start planning for your day if you know what's going to happen. You may feel more prepared, and look more professional in front of other team workers and the doctors and nurses too, so on. And you never know, you might even get hired there. So treat your fieldwork like it's a job interview. Number 2 is not checking in or communicating with your CI. Sure, I know at a minimum you'll be talking to your CI on a daily basis or a weekly check-in basis, that kind of thing. It's basically mandatory, generally. What I'm talking about is checking in and voicing any concerns that you have. The number 1 concern may be, oh shoot, will I be failing fieldwork? Of course, you won't ask this exact same way to your CI, but you can phrase it better. Like, hi, so-and-so, I want to express a concern that I might be having about my performance and how it will affect my final evaluation for fieldwork. Something like that. If you're really close and comfortable, you can ask this probably more casually. I'll leave that up to you, but it's better to ask early and be able to work things out and figure out how you can improve than say the last week where you really don't have much time left to make up and turn things around. Other things to check in are concerns you have, questions you have, that kind of thing. Don't just leave it up to your CI to bring up concerns or suggestions. There will always be an opportunity to bring things up at the end of the day. Some things I brought up were my questions about how to do certain transfers. I asked whether if we could go over some because we had a client who was doing a specific type of transfer that I was not particularly comfortable with. Like, I think it was a stand pivot one. And this shows your CI that you're willing to learn, that you're proactive and basically like a sponge, soaking up all that you can learn in your clinical experience. Some things you may ask about also are communication, how to do better time management, intervention planning, team collaboration, documentation, professionalism, or knowledge of skills for things and policies or conditions, like things like that. Another place to look is your midterm final evaluation sheet for what kind of things you'll be scored on, so you'll know ahead of time and you can improve on it that way. This leads me to number 1, and that's not being safe. I know you're all students, and I was one before too, and we all don't know everything. Remember the code of ethics? Those things are important to follow, so do no harm, don't do anything unethical, or disregard things like HIPAA. Don't be rushing around and not double checking and being careless, or being too confident and doing things incorrectly, especially when you have the opportunity to ask when you are unsure. Some CIs may give you the benefit of doubt, or even a hint, but pay attention to what they are saying and not get caught up in your own world because you may miss these clues. I know a CI who observed a student on several occasions forgetting to, say, relocate a Foley catheter. And having practiced this before, the student was about to do a transfer and the CI stopped them and asked, "Hey, did you forget anything?" The student didn't take the time to stop, take the CI's hint, and problem solve from the beginning. And they basically attempted to continue the transfer. Well, this was, I think, happened maybe the second time, and it's a big problem, right? Because if a Foley catheter gets pulled out from the client, yeah. So the CI said stop and failed them right there. They did not fail them because they didn't remember or know what to do. It was because they were giving a chance. They didn't really problem solve, and they were still unwilling to proceed and do something very unsafe. So my tip is to check and double check your breaks, your lines, the environment before you do your transfers. Basically, is what you're doing or the activity you're planning to do with your client going to break any precautions? Does it require additional doctor's orders? That kind of thing. Other points, don't run. Walk briskly, don't use excessive force, and try to be smart and approach it another way. Maybe meet the client halfway. Don't practice outside your scope of practice, especially as a student. If you're unsure, just wait until your CI gets there and is at least observing you before you do something unsafe. As you get better and better and more experience, your CI may basically provide more distant supervision, but that does not mean that you should let your guard down and be overly confident when especially you're not sure. I would be careful also of taking advice from other classmates, even other therapists. It's your CI who's the one who gives the final okay that you're working with that day. I hope these points help give you some insight into what not to do. Avoiding these 5 mistakes will really get you a long way already. Just hang in there, soak everything up, and remember to breathe. You'll survive and most likely pass, so good luck.